Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine.
Every day, I'm more and more angry at the fact that there's no solution for defending our city, especially when you read that Kyiv is so well protected by Western air defense.
Joe Lindsley.
Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting.
Welcome to Ukraine Bank.
In the news this morning, the report that groups involving tens of thousands of missing soldiers, relatives, and friends have sprouted up on Russian social media. And a lot of speculation that those grievances being aired and passed around on social media now may affect Russian support for the war in Ukraine and Putin. Let's find out what Joseph Lindsley thinks in Ukraine. Joe, are you aware of that story today?
Bob, a little bit about that. And good afternoon from Lviv. It was a major Russian attack throughout Ukraine through the early hours of this morning. But when we look at these stories, I mean, there is, it is, if you look at Russian Telegram, which is that sort of chat app or program, it can't be a good way to gauge what is the mood in Russia. And, and even, there are so many Ukrainians I know who have relatives in Russia, even parents or cousins or brothers and sisters. And many of them can't even speak with their Russian relatives. I know people that can't even speak with their mothers or fathers because the Russians believe so much Putin's propaganda and rhetoric. And so even when people, maybe in 2022, when Ukrainians spoke, especially people in a place like Kharkiv, which is very close to Russia, and people used to cross the border all the time, when Ukrainians speak with their relatives in Russia, the relatives would say, hey, we're coming to liberate you. They really would believe this stuff. And that's sort of the level of sort of psychosis maybe that pervades the country. And, the fact of Ukrainian cities being destroyed has not been enough to cause mass resistance within Russia. And so if that's not enough, maybe, their own people getting killed. I mean, by so many accounts, many Russians, of course, have died in battle. The Russian government sometimes has programs where they give people cars in exchange for the death of their loved ones. I mean, I think it's not, this might sound sort of preposterous, but I mean, it's not a surprise to think that the culture could be that way when you see the effects of that culture every single day here in Ukraine. And, as I'm here today in Lviv, and it was calm in the city last night, but, I really feel like we're spinning in space and time. Like, I think I have flashes of every movie I've ever seen about a war, whether it's a Marvel movie or an actual movie from World War II or Anne Frank or Saving Private Ryan. All of that is real here right now. And this is what Ukrainians are dealing with every day. I was speaking with many friends in Kharkiv today because the Russians have been especially pounding that city. Just an hour ago, I was talking with a friend who he had gone to the front a couple of days ago to bring supplies to conscripted soldiers. They didn't have enough food. And so the volunteers are bringing this food to the front to people we know there. And while my friend is telling me this, he was explaining that when he came home, his apartment was partially destroyed. The windows were blown out because a Russian bomb had hit 30 minutes before. So he was protected because he'd arrived home, after that attack. And while we're having this conversation, yet again today, Russian missiles hit Kharkiv, and they hit a sports ground at a school where children were having recess. The missile arrived before the air raid alarm could sound, and the reports now are that 2 children were wounded. I was talking with another friend in Kharkiv who said, it's these past days, I mean, they've been through so much hell, but that these past days are even more difficult, although people are not, losing their resolve. But this friend explained that there was shelling near the maternity hospital where his wife is due to give birth soon. And then he's described that the park where they were eating ice cream the other day, that same spot was bombed 2 days later. And, everyone I know in that city, and there's still hundreds of thousands of people there, has a story of this kind of close call. And one friend said from Kharkiv, every day I'm more and more angry at the fact that there's no solution for defending our city, especially when you read that Kyiv is so well protected by Western air defense. But there's really no conversation about that type of defense right now for Kharkiv. Another friend from Kharkiv said, these recent attacks first made me sad and then angry as hell, which gave me enough power to keep going. Now we're good, inspired, and motivated to keep on helping our soldiers all we can. So that's really the mentality in Kharkiv, but it's not easy. And what we saw last night, the Russians launched, it seems about 55 cruise and ballistic missiles and 21 drones all over Ukraine at 2 o'clock in the morning. Was the initial warning that the Russian bombers had launched missiles, and you get that chilling notification 40 to 60 minutes until these missiles arrive in Ukrainian airspace, and the alarms began to spread throughout the country. 2:40 a.m. Kharkiv city was hit. At 3 a.m., another batch of missiles launched throughout the country. And as I think it's the best way to describe it, as I always say, that this dance macabre, because the missiles, they start going toward one city and then they turn and change course, and it creates maximum terror and fear throughout the country. And so we had reports of many missiles coming here to Lviv, and in the end they bypassed the city and they went to that small city of Stry, where I was passing through the other day coming back from the mountains. And in Stry, the Russians have been pounding gas and energy infrastructure. It's a connection point to the grid from Europe. Probably the Russians are seeking to destroy weapons too. And so this little city has been absolutely pounded once again by the Russians. It seems that the Russians also hit 3 thermal stations. Again, some more power stations are being hit. So it was yet again a very difficult night throughout Ukraine. And then even as I go around Lviv today, amid all of this hell, people they still smile, they still go on with their life. And you go into a coffee shop, just imagine going into like a hipster coffee shop where everyone's on their MacBooks, and they greet you, because it's Easter season, with those words, Christos voskres, Christ is risen. And if they know you're American, in my case, they try to speak English. And so the girl in the coffee shop shouts to me, Christ is risen, in the Ukrainian way of pronouncing English. So here's a girl in the coffee shop, with like fancy lattes and cappuccinos shouting Christ is risen after a night when no one slept, because of these attacks, barraging this country. And so that's the in between here. You have this incredible sense of energy and spirit, but a deep sense of heaviness of what could arrive at any moment.
Joe, when you talk about those missile warnings that you get, we can't help thinking of how we would react here if that was the case. And for you, it's just business as usual, isn't it?
In a way, yeah. I mean, you always feel some butterflies, but that's what's so weird about it. You get used to it in a way. And if you're interested, I posted on our website, UkrainianFreedomNews.com, and across my social media, we posted an interview with a Ukrainian tennis player. He defeated Roger Federer at Wimbledon, and now he's a soldier. And so he talks a lot about how strangely you get used to this type of lifestyle, if you're interested in following that. And Bob, a lot of people asked for the name of that author I mentioned last week, Patrick Leigh Fermor, the British writer. His book, A Time of Gifts, about walking through Europe in the 1930s as that ominous cloud of Nazism was looming over Europe.
Yeah, we had a lot of emails and texts asking for that information, and also the movie that you mentioned. Was that a movie or a television show?
It's a 3 seasons TV show called The Detectorist, like metal detecting.
Got it. Joe Lindsley with the update from Ukraine and movie and book recommendations. And we'll talk tomorrow. Stay safe, Joseph.
Until tomorrow. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?